Welcome back to the workshop where the real fun begins. In part 1 we turned rough scraps into machine framework pieces. Now it's time to bring those pieces together and start building the shoe rack. Pre-drilling pocket holes not only keeps the frame strong but also avoids splitting the wood. Plus it feels like the project is finally coming to life. Now's the time to clean up any imperfections. Nail holes and small defects will be filled with wood putty for a smooth, professional finish. I'm applying the putty carefully, pressing it into the holes and ensuring it fills completely. This step not only improves the look, but it also strengthens the surface for finishing. With the putty fully cured, it's time to refine the surface by sanding. This step ensures a smooth, even finish, critical for a clean final look and proper assembly. I'm starting with a medium 120 grit sandpaper to level the putty and blend it seamlessly with the timber. The goal here is consistency across all surfaces. Any high spots or rough edges could interfere with the assembly. Here I'm cutting rebates into the frame pieces. These grooves will house the panels and slats, ensuring a flush fit and adding strength to the overall build. I carefully set the blade height and fence position. The depth of the rebate is carefully measured to match the thickness of the panels and slats. Precision here is key for a snug fit. With the rebates cut on the table saw, there's still some cleanup to do. I start by paring off the waste with a chisel, keeping it flat to the bottom of the rebate. It's slow, deliberate work. The trick here is to take your time. A sharp chisel does the job without forcing, and patience prevents me from turning this rebate into a hole. I also sand the rebate smooth with some fine grit sandpaper. A few strokes of this remove any chisel marks and give the wood that polished feel. Now I can arrange the rails and the uprights on the assembly table. The dry fit helps me visualise the final structure and ensures everything is where it's supposed to be before the glue and screws come out. I'm laying out the components, double checking measurements and getting everything ready for assembly. Preparation is key because once the screws go in, there's no turning back. Now that everything is laid out, it's time to assemble the frame. We're gluing and screwing the rails to the uprights with a little help from some brad nails for extra hold. I then apply a thin, even layer of wood glue to the ends of each rail. This is where the strength of the joint comes from. Think of screws and nails as the backup plan. Once the glue is on, I position the rail against the upright. A quick clamp ensures everything stays put while I secure it. I always wipe away any glue squeeze out immediately because dried glue is about as fun to remove as chewing gum from a shoe. Next, I drive in the pocket hole screws. These not only pull the joint tight but also add long-term strength to the frame. They're definitely the unsung heroes of furniture assembly. With our two ladder sections glued, screwed and nailed, the frame is officially taking shape. A solid start for a sturdy shoe rack. Next up are the long horizontal rails, the backbone of each shelf, supporting the slats and keeping everything solid. Glue, pocket holes and a little patience will bring these pieces into place. One by one, the horizontal rails are joined. Each one is a step closer to a shelf that can handle the daily chaos of shoes being thrown on and off. With the long rails secured, the foundation for the shelves is rock solid. Now it's time to tackle the cladding. This 9mm MDF will wrap the frame, giving it a clean, finished look. But first it needs to be cut to size, accurately, because nothing ruins a project faster than realising your measurements were close enough. Spoiler, they weren't. A quick word on the track saw. This tool is a game changer. It's precise, clean, and saves me from manhandling a full sheet through the table saw. Honestly, whoever invented this deserves a medal, or at least a thank you card. With the electric planer, we take the MDF panels that were supposed to fit perfectly and convince them to actually do so. I'm using 240 grit sandpaper with the orbital. MDF has a habit of fuzzing up if you get too aggressive, so it's all about light, even pressure. A few gentle passes and we're ready for paint. Before this shear rack can be painted, it needs a good undercoat. Here we use a 4-in-1 undercoat primer which seals, primes and gives a top coat something to grip. The pine frame gets the brush treatment, while the MDF panels get a smooth finish with a roller. Once everything is coated, I leave it to dry completely. The 4-in-1 primer dries fast, but I still give it plenty of time to set before sanding or adding the top coat. Rushing this step can lead to a rough or uneven finish. Now for the fun part, adding colours. The pine frame gets a sleek black finish with a brush, while the MDF panels are rolling into a bold jungle green. I cut the pine slats for the top shelf at a 45-degree angle using the drop saw. This isn't just about function, it's about style. The angled cuts add a decorative touch, giving the top shelf a more refined, finished look. Assembly continues by adding our jungle green panels using pins and screws. Not only do they add a pop of colour, but they also help reinforce the entire shear rack, making it as sturdy as it is stylish. The pins hold the panels steady while I go in with the screws. These aren't just any screws, they're carefully placed to avoid splitting the MDF and to ensure the panel stays firmly attached. With each panel, the rack takes on more personality. The jungle green isn't just a bold choice, it's a statement. These panels elevate the shear rack from functional storage to something that could live in the front hall without embarrassment. We pin down the angled slats for the top shelf, one by one. I start by placing the first slat at the edge of the frame, using a spacer to make sure it's perfectly aligned. With the slat in position, I fire in a couple of pins. These hold it securely while keeping the surface clean and free from screws. Quick, neat and no risk of splitting the wood. A perfect match for these delicate angles. Then it's rinse and repeat. Spacer goes in, next slat gets positioned and I pin it down. The process might look repetitive, but every slat adds to the overall design, turning what could be a plain top shelf into something far more refined. For the mid shelves, it's all about simplicity. 90-degree cuts on the drop saw, quick spacing and pinning from underneath. No fancy angles this time, just straightforward functionality. And it's just a matter of repeating the process. Spacer in, slat down, pin it in place. The rhythm is so satisfying, and the results speak for themselves. Clean lines and a perfect spacing every time. For the bottom shelves, I use a slightly different approach. Starting from the most basic, raw pallet wood. Once cut to size, it's time to sand. A quick pass with 120 grit paper does the trick, leaving the wood ready for a nice chamfer. I fitted my trim router with a chamfer bit to add a beveled edge to each shelf slat. It's a small detail, but it makes a huge difference in both the look and feel of these bottom shelves. A couple of final pins underneath the slats to hold them steady, and we're done with these. Easy, quick, and make sure nothing shifts. I also grab a little bit of black paint to touch up any spots that I might have missed earlier. You'd be surprised how many little nicks or areas that need a final layer. Whether it's some handling or just a spot that didn't get enough coverage, a quick brush and it's looking pristine again. Last but not least, I move on to the clear coat. A light spray of polyurethane over the whole rack gives it a durable, protective finish. It also enhances the colour, making that jungle green pop just a little more. Just be sure to spray in even coats and don't overdo it. You want to protect the finish, not drown it. And just like that, the rack is complete. It's got strength, it's got style, and it's ready for action. From the frame to the final coat, every step was worth it to create a piece that's as functional as it is beautiful. I'll let the clear coat cure, and then it's time to load it up with shoes, or whatever else you want to store. Thanks for watching this whole build. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more projects. Stay tuned for more on Design and Build It Workshop. See you next time.